Black Laws, ninth edition. Intrinsic. It's an adjective, belonging to a thing by its very nature, not dependent on external circumstances, inherent, essential. Quebec. Charter of Human Rights and Freedoms. The preamble. Whereas every human being possesses intrinsic rights. So the human being possesses intrinsic rights and freedoms designed to ensure his protection and development. Quebec. Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Article 1. Every human being has a right to life and to personal security, inviolability, and freedom. Juridical personality. He also possesses juridical personality, meaning the human being possesses juridical personality. The Civil Code of Quebec. Article 1. Every human being possesses juridical personality and has full enjoyment of civil rights. So, again, the human being possesses juridical personality. Black Laws, Edition 9. Artificial person. An entity such as a corporation, created by law and given certain legal rights and duties of a human being. A being, real or imaginary, who, for the purpose of legal reasoning, is treated more or less as a human being. Black Laws, Edition 9. Juridical person. See artificial person. Legal person. See artificial person. In the Quebec Civil Code, you find this expression. It says, every human possesses a juridical personality. Possesses. Now, most people who are watching my video, you possess a car. You have a car, right? But you do not always use your car. You may have it in your possession when you're at home, it's in your driveway, but you're not always using your car. Well, the same way, this way, every human being is considered that he already has a juridical personality. So you can't say that you don't have that juridical personality. You do. It's in your possession. However, you don't always have to use your juridical personality. That's why, when you look in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, it says that you have the right to recognition in the juridical personality, or through the juridical personality. You have the right, but no obligation. So you possess the legal person, or the artificial person, but you have no obligation to take recognition as a legal person, even though at all times you possess this legal person. So those in authority consider, when they look at a human being, the law declares that you are in possession of a juridical personality also, a legal person. However, you do not have to take recognition or enter into that recognition of the legal person. This legal person, this juridical personality, is given certain rights and benefits by being designated or taking recognition or walking under the status of a legal person. You have certain rights and benefits and duties that are attached to the legal person. Black Laws, 9th edition. Allegiance. A citizen's or subject's obligation of fidelity and obedience to the government or sovereign in return for the benefits of the protection of the state. Allegiance may be either an absolute and permanent obligation or a qualified and temporary one. Black's Law, Edition 9. Citizen. A person who, by either birth or naturalization, is a member of a political community, owing allegiance to the community and being entitled to enjoy all its civil rights and protections. Black's Law, Edition 9. Subject. One who owes allegiance to a sovereign and is governed by that sovereign's law, the monarchy's subjects. The legal person is the Canadian citizen. So when you use the word Canadian citizen, you're not describing a human being. You can't say, as a human being, I am a Canadian citizen. That doesn't make any sense. When you say Canadian citizen, what you are describing is what the human being possesses, which is that legal person. And subsequent to that, a Canadian citizen, the legal person, it owes allegiance to the Queen. It's taken an oath of allegiance to the Queen. It is considered a subject to the Queen, and it owes its allegiance, again, to a political party who represents the Queen. That's what this legal person is as a Canadian citizen. Now, also this legal person is entitled to rights and to benefits. Black Laws, 9th edition. Entitle. It's a verb. To grant a legal right to or qualify for. Now, entitlement. An absolute right to a benefit, such as Social Security, granted immediately upon meeting a legal requirement. So, an entitlement is an absolute right granted when you meet a legal requirement. The human possesses that legal person, but does not have an obligation to take recognition as a legal person. Now, Black's law defines legal persons or artificial persons as created, not by nature, not by God, but by law. Created by law and given. Now, this creation that they made is given certain legal rights and duties of a human being. That's kind of disgusting, but I'll keep going. A being, real or imaginary, again, that's been given certain rights and duties of a human being. Now, a being real would be considered a McDonald's, Kentucky Fried Chicken, a gas station, anything that's been given a name. That's considered a real legal person because it's tangible, it's physical. Now, imaginary legal person would be what we possess, because our legal person is not tangible. You can't touch it, you can't see it. It only operates in law because it's been given certain legal rights and duties. Again, a legal person is a being, real or imaginary, who, for the purpose of legal reasoning, nothing more than that, is treated more or less as a human being. A legal person or a person is a subject under allegiance to the Queen, and the person is given certain rights and freedoms and privileges or benefits of a human being. It's funny the way they word that. A person is given certain rights and freedoms or privileges or benefits of a person, It is funny how they word that. A person is given certain rights and freedoms and privileges and benefits of a human being. Now, a human being has intrinsic rights, part of our nature, intrinsic to us, privileges and freedoms that are ours and should not and cannot be taken away from us. A legal person, their rights and freedoms and privileges, they have to pay for them. A legal person has rights and privileges, but they're only certain rights and privileges, and they mimic a human being, and they are less than an intrinsic rights that the human being possesses. Now, in the Financial Administration Act of Canada, Article 19.1, it says that these rights and privileges which are conferred upon the legal person through regulation and statutory laws. For these rights and privileges that the legal person expresses, there is a prescribed fees or charges to be paid for a right or privilege. Now listen to this. Conferred, mean given, or handed down, or placed upon. Conferred by or on behalf of Her Majesty. So for the legal person to operate or have rights and freedoms or privileges, they must pay certain fees or charges in the form of a permit or a license. The Financial Administration Act, Article 19.1. The Governor in Council may, on the recommendation of the Treasury Board, by regulation prescribe the fees or charges to be paid for a right or privilege conferred by or on behalf of Her Majesty in right of Canada by means of a license, permit, or other authorization by the persons or classes of persons on whom the right or privilege is conferred. The certain rights, benefits, and privileges that are conferred by Her Majesty upon the persons by means of a license or permit or authorization by the persons or classes of persons on whom the right is conferred. So for you to have, or for the juridical personality to have certain rights and privileges and benefits, they have to pay for these in the forms of permits and license. And by paying for it, Her Majesty will confer or give you authorization to express these certain rights and freedoms. Everything seems to be backwards, flipped around here with our rights and freedoms for the human being. Because the human, we have intrinsic rights and freedoms, inalienable rights and freedoms that are attached to our nature. And we should be operating under these rights and freedoms. However, through ignorance and deception, Canada, the government, has stripped us of these rights and freedoms. Do not consider us humans under law when they deal with us, talk to us, and treat us, but consider us legal persons with only certain rights and freedoms that have been conferred upon us once we met certain standards, such as doing courses, paying for license, such and such. They were conferred upon us. Now, we, human beings, are being controlled through a legal person, through legal reasoning. That's what they're doing. The Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, Article 26. The guarantee in this charter of certain rights and freedoms shall not be construed as denying the existence of any other rights or freedoms that exist in Canada. The Canadian Bill of Rights, an act for the recognition and protection of human rights and fundamental freedoms. The Canadian Bill of Rights, Article 5. Nothing in Part 1 shall be construed to abrogate or abridge any human right or fundamental freedom not enumerated therein that may have existed in Canada at the commencement of this act. In Canada, the Canadian citizen is indeed a legal person who has certain rights and freedoms. The human being has all their rights and freedoms, their intrinsic rights. Now, in the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, Article 26, Canada recognizes other rights and freedoms that are in operation here. And in the Canadian Bill of Rights, Article 5, again, Canada recognizes other rights and freedoms that are in operation here. What that's trying to express is saying that the rights and freedoms of that legal person is not the only rights and freedoms that are available to us here in Canada. We may have been held in ignorance and in deception, and we didn't understand how we were being controlled through those in the position of authority. But when we do understand the difference, we see the operation of law that teaches us that Canada recognizes the intrinsic rights of a human being, and is clearly expressed in their own articles of law. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 6. Everyone has the right to recognition everywhere as a person before the law. The International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, Article 16. Everyone shall have the right to recognition everywhere as a person before the law. The International Covenant on Social, Economic, and Cultural Rights, Article 11. The state parties to this present covenant recognize the right of everyone to an adequate standard of living for himself and his family, including adequate food, clothing, and housing, and to the continuous improvement of living conditions. The state parties will take appropriate steps to ensure the realization of this right. In the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 6, and in the International Covenant of Civil and Political Rights, Article 16, it says, everyone has the right to recognition as a person. You have the right to take that recognition to operate as a person before the law and before authorities. That is your right. You can take the recognition as a person. So if you take the recognition as a person, i.e. a Canadian citizen, the legal person, then you strip yourself. When you allow yourself to be classed as a person, you strip yourself of your intrinsic and inalienable human rights. Because the legal person does not have the same privileges, benefits, and rights as a human being. Far less. Now, everyone has the right to recognition as a person. So everyone, the human being, we decide not to take recognition as a person. So then, what remains is our freedoms. Many, many rights are intrinsic and inalienable rights. And these include food, housing, and clothing, among other things. You take a coin, two different heads on that coin, heads or tails, two completely different sides. Same thing, what's going on here, and what's transpiring with us and to us, and affecting us and our families directly, because on one hand we have that legal person, that Canadian citizen who owes allegiance to Her Majesty and who owes allegiance to a political party and is a subject of the monarchy. It pays. So we pay as that legal person. Pays for rights. Is governed and controlled. Pays for taxes. Has to pay house taxes. Has to pay business taxes. Has to pay personal taxes. Pays for permits and license in order to have rights and privileges conferred upon it. Has to pay for education. Has to pay for food. Has to pay for clothing. And has to pay for a house. Now, this is what is living inside of our hearts and minds because of how we've been deceived and how our human rights have been hidden from us. So that when some come across my video, they cannot eat this, they cannot swallow this, they cannot comprehend it. It starts a war inside of them. We all pass through it. Every single one that I've spoken to who have accepted their rights, whether through my video or prior, they have known their rights and freedom and have known about this distinction. We all suffer this same pathway. We all suffer this same tribulation. We all suffer this same wrestling time. Because we've been taught, we have all been taught, this is the way that it should be. And this is the only way that there is for us. However, in the law, as a human being, we are owed certain things. Why are we owed certain things? Because Her Majesty, the Queen, seized all the resources of Canada away from us, the human beings. All the natural resources here in this land, it belongs to us, each and every one of us, a little part of it. But she decided she would seize everything and she would create a commercial system, and she would term us, or designate us legal persons, and strip away all our rights and freedoms as a human being, and not teach us and tell us that these rights and freedoms are still in existence and available for us. So, as a human being, we are owed certain things, and we have the right to enjoy, not pursue after, but to enjoy food and clothing and housing and education, because the state party said in the International Covenant that education shall be free, and they were indeed under an obligation at a certain time limit to get this education into existence, to get it that it would be free, and again they failed. We have the right as human beings to a continued improvement of our living conditions. We're not supposed to be sitting in poverty. We're not supposed to be struggling. We're not supposed to be going backwards in our life. We have the right as a human being to a continued improvement of our living conditions. Your security for the human being was seized upon by the agents here in Canada, and your patrimony was placed into the Canadian Consolidation Fund, and your guarantees for your rights and freedoms as a human being is there for you to use. However, the government has decided that it's more important for them to take that money, for them to take that security, and to spend it on $50,000 chairs for the government, or $5 million for an artificial lake, or we can keep on going and going. All of us know how the government spends the money. But nevertheless, where they are drawing that money from, the Canadian Consolidation Fund, the Revenue Fund, that is where we can draw that money from as a human being. That is what the law says. We have the right to make appropriations for our human needs. We have the right, according to these laws that have been enacted, that our human needs, our human rights and freedoms are to be met. We are not to struggle under this system. We are not to follow this system. We do not have to take recognition as the legal person. We do not have to stand before them as the legal person. But it takes an understanding and a relearning of who you are and what you are under law and what rights and freedoms that affords you. And no one can do that for you. Only yourself. If you don't put the effort in to unlearning and washing all this garbage that they put through us, all this strife, all the tribulation, all the trials that this creates, thinking that that's the way life should have been, thinking that that's the way that we are under obligation to live. We were not placed on earth to operate in a commercial system. You have to grasp that. Yes, there are benefits to the commercial system. We all will use the commercial system, even as human beings. But first and foremost, we were not placed here to operate in a commercial system trying to pursue after a living. We have been granted a living to enjoy it. And even saying those words, some watching this video cannot accept that and cannot understand what I just said. There is a huge difference going on in here. There is a huge difference. Enjoying and pursuing after a living changes the quality of life that you have here in Canada. You have to be patient with yourself. You can't learn all this, you can't understand all this in a short period of time. I'm sure there are going to be some who have mental capacity, the mental ability to pick up things quite quickly and to discern things quite quickly, that will be able to comprehend. Slowly learn, slowly take your knowledge. And when you have a good base, a good foundation, begin to express your human rights. Begin to make demands for your human rights. Stop operating as a legal person. If you have to pay a consequence, for example, spending a couple of hours or a couple of days in jail, well then so be it. That's a consequence you're going to have to pay. Or stay bound as a legal person, suffering. Or start to learn your rights and freedoms and open up your mouth and make demands upon those who are holding back our rights and freedoms as human beings. Because if we don't do it on an individual level, it's not going to change for us, for our families, and it's not going to change on a greater level for Canada and for our societies. Yes, it's scary sometimes to stand up to the system, but you are standing in honor. When you understand who you are and what is backing you, you have not what to be afraid of. That recognition of the legal person. This legal person, this juridical personality is given certain rights and benefits. By being designated or taking recognition or walking under the status of a legal person, you have certain rights and benefits and duties that are attached to the legal person. Black Laws, 9th edition. Allegiance. A citizen's or subject's obligation of fidelity and obedience to the government or sovereign in return for the benefits of the protection of the state. Allegiance may be either an absolute and permanent obligation or a qualified and temporary one. Juridical personality, you do. It's in your possession. However, you don't always have to use your juridical personality. That's why when you look in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, it says that you have the right to recognition in the juridical personality or through the juridical personality. You have the right but no obligation. So you possess the legal person or the artificial person, but you have no obligation to take recognition as a legal person, even though at all times you possess this legal person. So those in authority consider, when they look at a human being, the law declares that you are in possession of a juridical personality also, a legal person. However, you do not have to take recognition or enter into that. Legal reasoning is treated more or less as a human being. Black Laws, Edition 9. Juridical person, see artificial person. Legal person, see artificial person. In the Quebec Civil Code, you find this expression. It says, every human possesses a juridical personality. Possesses. Now, most people who are watching my video, you possess a car. You have a car, right? But you do not always use your car. You may have it in your possession when you're at home, it's in your driveway, but you're not always using your car. Well, the same way, this way, every human being is considered that he already has a juridical personality. So you can't say that you don't have that. Black Laws, 9th edition. Intrinsic. It's an adjective. Belonging to a thing by its very nature. Not dependent on external circumstances. Inherent. Essential. Quebec. Charter of Human Rights and Freedoms. The Preamble. Whereas every human being possesses intrinsic rights. So the human being possesses intrinsic rights and freedoms designed to ensure his protection and development. Quebec. Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Article 1. Every human being has a right to life and to personal security, inviolability, and freedom. Juridical personality. He also possesses juridical personality, meaning the human being possesses juridical personality. The Civil Code of Quebec. Article 1. Every human being possesses juridical personality and has full enjoyment of civil rights. So, again, the human being possesses juridical personality. Black Laws, Edition 9. Artificial person, an entity such as a corporation, created by law and given certain legal rights and duties of a human being. A being, real or imaginary, who, for the purpose of